Now, see, this was the hardest episode of this miniseries to write, and there's two reasons for that. The first was that figuring out what makes the action RPG genre the action RPG genre was surprisingly difficult. This genre varies wildly in how much story, characterization, role-playing, and such any game in it has. They can go from something as story-heavy as Kingdom Hearts or Fable to something as story-light as Dragon's Dogma or Monster Hunter. So that wasn't it. Character customization and such? Same issue, basically. Some action RPGs are fairly light on how much the player can change up their character's fighting style and moveset. A surprising number actually have strict upgrade paths or base the moveset entirely around a character's weapons, and don't have any way to unlock new skills at all. And it's not even the bad games that do this. Some of the best action RPGs ever made are restricted this way. Eventually it turned out that I was way overthinking things. The focus of the action RPG genre is right there in the name. Action. Specifically the combat. Combat in action RPGs tends to be a very tightly controlled affair. Character actions are precise, and there's a heavy emphasis on skill use for combos, evasion, and special abilities across the entire genre. Dodge out of a dragon's fire breath at just the right time to take advantage of the miss, hit it with a big attack to stun it, and then let loose with a hugely damaging combo. And if you screw it up at any point, you will be knocked around like a rag doll for how much you suck. This precision is usually backed up by a surprising amount of depth for how many restrictions action RPGs tend to have. Every weapon set or character class will have a set of moves that chain into each other and allow the player to move around the battlefield and carve up monsters like a graceful dancer mixed with a blender designed to feed the entire United States military, provided they put in the work to learn and master that depth. If they don't, they'll be left looking like a Neanderthal with a club, trying to figure out how to kill an elephant and wondering why they keep getting slammed against a wall. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. So that's the core of the genre, a deep and precise style of combat that rewards the player for learning how to effectively use it by allowing them to pull off increasingly amazing feats of combat skill. I cannot talk today. However, I then ran into my second problem. See, much like MMORPGs, there's nothing really wrong with the action RPG genre. It doesn't even have the same kind of problem with predatory monetization. Near as I could tell, the action RPG genre is perfectly fine. Seriously, I played every action RPG I could get my hands on, even hijacking my uncle's PS4 over my Christmas break to play games I normally wouldn't even have access to. This genre is more or less fine. There's not even anything I could think of that would universally improve the genre. More story and such? I've played action RPGs that would only be bogged down by a bunch of narrative focus and cutscenes. Role-playing? It could work, but again, not every action RPG has enough of a narrative to make it matter. More options for character skill build and such? Again, some games don't really need it since they focus on allowing customization through things like weapon types or job classes, allowing the player to fairly freely switch between them. So what then? Is this the end of the video and the end of this little mini-series, ending on a note that at least one of the RPG subgenres doesn't have any major issues and doesn't need us to swoop in and save it? Honestly, I could end here, yeah. This isn't a bad note to end on. In fact, it's a rather good one. But it does make for a short video, doesn't it? Well, if you looked at the timestamp, you know that I'm not quite done yet. While I was making this series, a few people questioned some of my decisions regarding this genre in particular, and the games placed in it, or rather, the games that weren't placed in it in some cases. So, I'm going to take the time to address some of those concerns. First off, the latter Deus Ex games, which some people considered just action games. I do see the argument, but given the depth given to character customization and combat focus in those games, I do consider them action RPGs, if a bit gimpy for the genre. Pretty robust for just straight action though, so I get why some people consider them action games with RPG elements. Next was the Fable games, which some people thought should be Western RPGs. Again, I see your point, but they actually do fit better here. The role-playing elements of the Fable games tends to be pretty weak, but the combat is usually solid and given a lot of focus, which is why I put them in this genre. Then there was my consideration of Soulsborne style games as a completely separate genre. Honestly, Soulsborne games could be considered a subgenre of action RPGs. It is what they were originally considered, as both genres share a focus on deep, precise combat. However, Soulsborne games have some other qualifications, like a deeper lore and a fairly distinct narrative style that mainly uses the environment and item descriptions to tell the story, so I consider them separate genres altogether. Finally, some people, especially after the Western RPG video went up, thought that Bethesda RPG should be in this category rather than in the Western RPG category. Honestly, though, they wouldn't fare any better here. Bethesda RPGs tend to have really floaty and imprecise combat, and it tends to be pretty shallow on top of it. I do see the argument since Bethesda RPGs don't really focus on role-playing, but they don't really focus on combat either. They could be considered open-world games with RPG elements and not actual RPGs, I suppose, in which case they would hold up better, but so long as they continue to build themselves as RPGs, I will continue to flog them for being poor RPGs, whether you consider them action RPGs or Western RPGs. And no, I'm not just jumping on the Fallout 76 bandwagon. I've been saying that Bethesda RPGs sucked for months, since last E3. Now then, now we're at the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and that you've enjoyed watching this little mini-series on the RPG genre as a whole. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. I've actually already got it planned out, so it won't be too long. Too long in between this video and the next. This has been For Fun and Profit. Thank you all, and good night, folks.